What's happening, Saints fans? Hope y'all are having a wonderful day. In today's show, I'm going to be discussing the fact that the New Orleans Saints could save a lot of money if they decide to cut Derek Carr. However, does it make sense? I'm going to dive into that in today's program. And later, we're going to be giving shout-outs to those of you who get in the comment section early and often, a.k.a. the Noti Gang. So hang out to the end of the video to see if you got a shout-out. But before I give you my take and give you some facts, I want to hear from you, Who Dat Nation. What would you do with Derek Carr this offseason? Would you cut him or would you keep him? Let me know in the comment section. Put your GM hat on and let's dive in. Bleacher Report having a very interesting write-up discussing the facts around Derek Carr's contract and how it could impact the Saints moving forward. In the past, we've suggested getting longer looks at quarterbacks Jake Haener and Spencer Rattler. Derek Carr will be a potential cap casualty in 2025. Releasing him with a post-June 1 designation would save the Saints $30 million. But the New Orleans Saints may want to stick with Carr for as long as it holds playoff hopes. And I will say this right now, in the current state of the New Orleans Saints, Derek Carr does give your team the best ability to win. And what I mean by that is I think Derek Carr, he's not the best quarterback in the league. He's not a terrible quarterback either. Jake Haener, Spencer Rattler, they are not the guys who are going to lead you on a win streak to try and make a playoff push. Derek Carr is your best bet. He has missed some games due to injury. Jake Haener, in his limited action, he was okay, but not super duper inspiring. And Spencer Rattler is clearly still aggressively a rookie, and that's okay for those two young players. But right now, when it comes to the New Orleans Saints, do not expect Carr to be benched. Do not expect Carr to have any sort of changes as the quarterback until he's either A, injured, or B, very much so out of the playoff run, or playoff hunt, I should say. If we have a bunch of wins rifling off against the Rams, you go and win against the Giants, and then you take down the Commanders, guess what? You have a very high percentage of making the postseason, and you're not making a change at quarterback at that spot. However, let's say you lose to the Rams, you beat the Giants maybe, you lose to the Commanders, and then you have the Packers game. That really is your last hope, and you end up losing that game. Maybe you see Rattler and Haener in the Week 17 and Week 18 matchups. I just don't see that being the case, especially if the New Orleans Saints keep winning, because obviously the playoff hopes are live, and Derek Carr, in my opinion, gives you the best chance to win. Now, coming up, Bleacher Report did discuss the idea of letting Taysom Hill take over as the quarterback because he was really, really electric, and he's clearly a very dynamic piece of the offense. But first, I got to encourage you to keep that hiney shiny with Tushy Bidets. Guys, you're going to be having a lot of friends and family over for the holidays this coming up and a household full of holiday guests. It is a beautiful thing until you realize they're all endlessly wiping in your bathroom. Give your toilet a fighting chance by installing a Tushy bidet. I love my Tushy at home, and it took less than 10 minutes for me to install. Tushy bidets help clean up a crappy situation, kind of like the New Orleans Saints, that 7-game losing streak. It might seem like a gag gift, but I promise you this, it will keep your guests from gagging when they walk into your bathroom. It's so easy to use. You just sit down, do your business, and then turn the knob for a refreshing stream of clean water. That's right, I said refreshing stream of clean water. And once you're done, you simply pat dry and with toilet paper. And actually, fun fact, if you do use a Tushy bidet, those who use Tushy bidets use up to 80% less toilet paper, thus saving you a few bucks, which in today's economy, that's a really good thing in my opinion. It also helps prevent clogged toilets and all that good stuff as well. Give the gift of practical luxury that benefits everyone in your household. Go to hellotushy.com/chat now to grab your deal before it's gone. And don't forget to give us a shout out while you're there and let them know that we sent you. Go to hellotushy.com/chat for the best gift this holiday season. The link is in the comment section and description of this video. Now, Bleacher Report saying that the Saints should keep augmenting their offense with do-it-all runner, receiver, quarterback Taysom Hill. He completely took over that game against the Cleveland Browns in Week 11, and he can be a huge asset in upcoming games against the Rams, Giants, and Commanders. Now, I totally agree with that. I think that he should have a big role in these upcoming matchups, especially if you're trying to compete, which the Saints are, for a playoff spot. the Browns game, he was absolutely incredible. 230 all-purpose yards, 3 touchdowns. He did throw an interception. He did have a fumble. That being said, Taysom Hill was the offensive player of the week in the NFC for a good reason. Now, I don't think that Taysom Hill should take over as the full-time quarterback. Now, that's where I will disagree with Bleacher Report because I think that he is best utilized in a do-it-all position. If you limit Taysom Hill to being a quarterback, you don't have the ability to use him as a receiver or as an extra blocker. You also limit his capabilities of, or not the capabilities, you eliminate the, oh my gosh, what ifs when he's on the field, the unpredictability factor when he's on the field, because when he's lined up in this current offense, you don't know if he's going to throw the ball. You don't know if he's going to run. You don't know if he's going to be catching the pass. It doesn't matter where he's lined up. He could be doing anything. Now, Bleacher Report did add this about Derek Carr. His play has been up and down throughout the season, so the less pressure the Saints can place on him, the better. And I will disagree with that because I think that Derek Carr is a player who can manage pressure well. Does he always come out on top? I don't know. But I do, not really know. We know the answer. Not all the time. However, I think that this is an opportunity for the New Orleans Saints this offseason to move off of a player that we all know isn't going to be a part of the long-term future. The Saints are going to have a new head coach. They're obviously going to have a new coaching staff with some of those new coaches coming in. Whenever the head coach gets hired, whoever it is, whether it's Darren Rizzi, whether it's a Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, whoever it could be, I don't know. Joe Brady, maybe. This is going to be an offseason that is going to be absolutely crazy, though. So I can tell you one thing. If you want to stay informed, if you want to be updated on all things black and gold, this is the channel for you. So be sure to subscribe and lock us in for daily Saints videos, not just during the football season, but in the offseason as well. We have the opportunity to potentially have a high draft pick. We have the opportunity to get a new quarterback, new head coach. There's going to be a lot of things that we want to discuss. Free agency is going to be very active as well for the Saints. We all know that they like to spend money, whether we agree or not, how they spend it, they like to do that. So lock us in, subscribe today. Free Saints coverage every single day. Now let's talk about cutting Derek Carr when it comes to this offseason. That was kind of the idea of this video. The Saints could save a lot of money. That is a fact. They could save up to $30 million if they cut him post June 1st. However, they will hold on to $51 million in dead money until June 2nd, and that's going to be money that they don't necessarily get. I think the $51 million. They have $51 million in dead money, but you won't get money to spend until June 2nd because he has to be a June 1st cut. And I'm not opposed to doing that. I just think when it comes to cutting Derek Carr, it's going to be one of those things where it's whether or not you see him as a plan next year. And he does have a no-trade clause, so when you come to the opportunity to maybe trade him, that would be something that he has to lift his no-trade clause for. A player can do that. It's just a matter of whether or not he would be willing to do that. And if he does waive his no-trade clause and you trade him as in post-June 1, you could save up to $40 million. Now, if the New Orleans Saints move on from Carr, here's pretty much a summary of the best and worst case scenarios, in my opinion. Now, if you move on from Carr, you have Jake Haener or Spencer Rattler start next year, and they're the guy. They turn out to be the guy. They're your long-term quarterback for the future, and things are all fine and dandy right there. If you cut him, you save that $30 million as a post-June 1 cut, and if you trade him, save $40 million, depending on whether or not he would waive that no-trade clause. And then on top of that, you're set up for long-term success because you have your quarterback figured out. If you have your quarterback figured out, you more than likely probably have your offense figured out, more than likely have your head coach figured out, so you're set up really well for long-term success. Now, the worst-case scenario that could happen, you could be out a lot of money. You could have a high draft pick in 2026, and maybe you go get an Arch Manning or something like that. But I will say this, with Derek Carr, he does have a potential out in his contract for 2025. And the New Orleans Saints aren't going to get rid of him just to save $30 million. The big thing is, will they want to be tied to Derek Carr? Because if the Saints cut him post-June 1, they will still have to find a way to get under the salary cap while carrying $51.4 million of dead money on the books until June 2nd. Now, that's where things can get a little dicey here. The question, again, being, do the Saints want to be tied to Derek Carr? Ian Rapoport did put out an article discussing the fact that the Saints are not going to be totally tearing things down. They might have some, new looks this upcoming season. They may not be the same team you see right now, but they're not tearing it down to the nuts and bolts. The Saints will have plenty of decisions to make, but those decisions will be based on value, not necessity. Carr is the most headline-grabbing, but there Excuse me, but here are many others. Rap Sheet continuing to say, does an older, expensive player warrant the contract owed? Is there a reduction plan or a release? In other words, the same issues all teams face. Does this player give the team the best chance to win? So it's not going to come down to whether or not the Saints are just like, hey, this is going to be a hard decision, but it saves us a lot of money. It's a decision on, no, this is a part of the future. Derek Carr is going to be in the plan. Jake Haener, Spencer Rattler, not ready. We want to not roll the dice, but we want to run it back and keep this going and try one more season of this. And then ultimately that either fails or it succeeds. And then you have this conversation again in 2026, which in my opinion has a much better draft class. So I'm okay with that in my personal opinion, but I just got to ask you this question. We talked about Derek Carr playing for the Saints, the pros, the cons of that. I think that it ultimately is the right decision for Derek Carr to stick around. But what team do you think he will play for? Is it going to be the Saints? Is it going to be another team? Let it down in the comment section and, just have some fun with this question. Now, in my opinion, the most likely outcome is that the New Orleans Saints, they will end up restructuring Derek Carr's contract. And if they do, they could save up to about $31 million of cap space, which is really, really good, considering the fact that the Saints are very much so over the cap next year. This could save a lot of money for the Saints. And then you have a few other moves, and you're very much so in the green. You actually have about $10-11 million to spend, depending on how the restructures and everything goes. So I will say this. I don't think Derek Carr is getting cut. I think it's honestly in their best interest not to cut him. I think he's a fine player. We know that he's not a part of the plan for the long term and for the massive future, but in the short-term future and for the foreseeable, Carr is a part of the plan, and I do think that he is a competent and capable quarterback. You just got to give him a healthy roster. You got to keep him healthy. Who knows what will happen? And honestly, the fact that Dennis Allen's out of there, maybe things could change. Who knows? This is just going to be a wild offseason. So again, be sure to subscribe. Now, as promised, we got to give shout-outs to the Noti Gang. Laddie Daddy, might have to change that name, my friend. Adonna Frank, Sally Seaballs, Michael, and Queen Courtney. Y'all get the Queen Courtney emojis down in the chat. Show some love to the Noti Gang. And if you want to be a part of the Noti Gang and you want to get a shout out, be sure to turn on your notifications. Set them to all after you subscribe. That way, whenever we post a video, we go live, anything like that, you will be informed. And that way you can be the first one to know and the smartest one in your squad. So Who Dat Nation, thanks so much for tuning in. Y'all stay golden. We'll see you next time.